When can I call myself a drummer? I want that identity. So everything I'm looking at, it's like, what would a drummer do? How would a drummer react? How would a drummer get through that? And ultimately, I want to be a musician. And if I'm a musician, how do I interact with music? 99% of the time, need to know an instrument, right? So drums is the way that I get to interact with music and other musicians. You just started out on the drums, or you're a beginner on the drums, or you still feel like a beginner. Maybe you've been playing for several years and you feel like a beginner. But you want to feel like you can drum and play with confidence. I've heard this related to me I've taught at this point tens of thousands of students online, in person, like lots of students, right? That's the great thing about online is you can teach a lot at once. And I hear from them a lot. And one of the things that I hear from them in some form is I want to be confident even though I've just started. And so I've been able to help a lot of students do this. And I think I can help you do that too. And so if you're a beginner, you still want to be able to play with confidence. And you still want to, and this is what this boils down to, and that's why I want to kind of jump on it super quick with this. By the way, welcome to the Drum Show podcast. This is just one of the many things that I do. So when it comes to, when someone tells me, or they don't sound confident, or they don't, to me, this is another form of the same question that I get a lot. And that question is, when can I call myself a drummer? Which I don't know that I ever, maybe that question came through my mind early on. I was 14, I started drumming. I'm like, I'm a drummer. It's like, I go to play with people, I can't keep a beat. They're like, you're not a drummer. It's like, yes, I am. I have a drum. I was so enthusiastic about it. But when we were starting anything new, like drumming or learning saxophone or learning to cook or you get married or whatever, there's at the core of us as humans, what we are wanting to do is we're wanting an identity change. We're wanting to change the identity that we have to identify as this thing that we aspire to be. That could be you're married, newlyweds, and you want to have a child, right? You want to identify as a parent. That is the identity change that has to take place, right? And there's problems whenever you have a child. And you don't want to take that identity on, right? There's tons of counselors that make a lot of money off of people that their parents didn't want to take on that role. But whenever we had kids, I'm like, no, I want to be a dad. I want to be a father. And so I also want to be a husband. But when it came to drums, I want to be a drummer. I want that identity. So everything I'm looking at, it's like, what would a drummer do? How would a drummer react? How would a drummer get through that? And ultimately, I want to be a musician. So I look at everything from the lens of I'm a musician. And if I'm a musician, how do I interact with music? Well, I probably 99% of the time need to know an instrument, right? So drums is the way that I get to interact with music and other musicians. But the identity outside of a musician is a drummer. And so really what you're wanting whenever you start a new study or a new hobby or a new job or anything like that, it's an identity. One of the, to kind of bring this home, I was talking to a guy that I knew, and he was employed by one of the companies that I'm endorsed by. Let's just say that. They had acquired another company, and they were trying to merge the two. And there was a lot of confusion amongst the people that worked there. And he said something to me. He said, yeah, everybody's just walking around confused. He's like, nobody knows what anybody's title is. And that kind of struck me. They didn't know what their identity was, so there was mass confusion. And really what they needed was for leadership, and I'm sure leadership was working on that, for them to say, this is your title. And they take that identity. I'm head of marketing. I'm head of sales. I'm customer relations. I'm, whatever that, I'm the vice president, whatever that looks like. But because they didn't have that identity, they didn't have anything they could lean into. So they were all a wondering generality, right? You don't be a wondering generality, as Zig Ziglar would say, being a meaningful specific. And so they would wander around and they're like, I don't exactly know my job is, because they didn't have a title and they couldn't assume that identity, right? If you're the head of marketing, it's like, all right, let's go. I'm head of marketing. That means I need to get this ship going. So when it comes to drumming, a lot of times whenever you are not feeling like you're able to drum with confidence, it's because you have not assumed the identity of a drummer. So if you're just starting on drums, or if you're a beginner, or maybe you've been drumming a couple years and you feel like a beginner and you're not very confident with it, the first thing I want you to do is assume the identity of a drummer. I'm a drummer. You're a drummer. Congratulations. Welcome to the family, right? We're both drummers. And then let's get past it. You're like, no, I'm not good enough. Then there's no litmus test for how good you need to be to call yourself a drummer. Trust me. There's some very popular drummers that I could point to that I'm like, they have a career. It's kind of on tape that they're not the best drummer. But it's like, this podcast is brought to you by the Drum Better Daily program. That's actually my online drum school that I've run now for 12 plus years. Not only have I been playing the drums professionally since the age of 15, I've been teaching since the age of 18. Matter of fact, I talked to one of my first student a few days ago. I actually called him to see if he could sub a gig out for me. Daniel, love you, man. And he's still playing. He's still doing it on a pro level. And I have been committed to teaching for 22 plus years now. I would love to have you go check it out at stevensdrumshed.com. You can find a link to that in the show notes or video description, whichever platform you're watching it on. But it truly is a community of like-minded drummers where we are striving to just be the best that we can be at the drums. In addition to over 70 pre-recorded drum courses, there's also a tech talk area where we talk about everything technology related as it pertains to the drums, e-kits, recording, doing videos, all of that stuff. There are forums where you can hang out with the other students as well. We do 2 live video student calls every week that you can join if you'd like to. We do guest artist calls monthly, and I'll even make you a personalized lesson plan if that's what you need. Yes, we talk about the nuts and bolts of drumming. Yes, I give you exercises, but we also talk a lot about how to practice more efficiently, how to practice better, and how to get more out of your practice time. I know you're just like me. You're busy, you're being pulled by work, by family, by friends, by other responsibilities. Whenever you practice, you really want to see gains and have it be productive. That is what we focus on in the Drum Better Daily program. I'll have to say personally, it's been really cool because some of these students I've worked with for over 12 years, we started running drum camps here in 2022, and I got to meet some of them in person for the first time. Those drum camps have been selling out, blowing my mind with how much fun they are and how great a time it is to bring the community together in person. I'd love to have you be a part of it. There's no litmus test for how good you need to be before you can call yourself a drummer. I've met a lot of cooks that are bad cooks, but they call themselves cooks, don't they? That's okay. I mean, there's another label that we can, but they're a bad cook, right? So we need to assume the identity change. We need to call ourselves drummers. And now we need to lean on those past successes. So one of the things that we can do is, and one of the things that I stress with my students that are here, that are in my Drum Better Daily program, which is the online drum school that I've run for 13 years, as well as the students that come here in person, because we have 6 drum camps every year. We just released registration for the 2025 season a few weeks ago, so go check that out. Those will sell out, but I'd love to have you here. And one of the things every day that I stress with them is, and we make a point to go through it, is, what is your win from yesterday? Does anybody have wins from, and even if they don't raise their hand, and because I know there are people in that room that go, this is kind of dumb. Like, what is this, group therapy? You know what? It's a small thing, but it's really a big thing, because we underestimate what we can do in a year and we overestimate what we can do in a week. But what we have to do, there was a great book called Grit. And what they found was the elite in any field weren't so special. They just did the next logical thing every day. And if you looked at the 10-year span, nothing would look phenomenal. But every day, the thing that set them apart was they were doing the next most logical thing and getting those daily wins. And they had the grit and determination to continue doing that for a very long period of time. And those daily wins added up to a Michael Phelps, who looks like he's a superhuman fish in the water. But he's not. He just did the next logical thing and had great coaches, and we can add to that. But so what I want you to do is celebrating daily wins. What went well yesterday that you can point to? What was better yesterday than it was the day before? What was better today than it was the day before? And those small wins are going to help us get to the other bigger wins. And one of the things that helps me with this is keeping a practice journal. A practice journal is just something, it's 3 or 4 minutes, and you just write down what you were practicing, what the date is, how long you practiced, what BPMs were you at, how you felt about it, where are you going to start the next day. That's really all that needs to be in there. And then you look back on that every day. Oh, it said I was going to start there. But as you're looking back, you go, oh, I got this much further. Oh, look, 2 weeks ago I was here. Well, I'm actually a lot faster. That's wow, I said I was going to learn that song and I learned it 2 days before I said I was going to learn it. You get to look back and you lean on your past successes, and that helps us have confidence going forward. We're going to be able to call ourselves as a drummer. We're assuming that identity. We're doing things that drummers do. We're celebrating daily wins, and we're keeping that practice journal that gives us the confidence every time we look back. Whenever we start, that little voice in your head says, you're not really getting anywhere. You can look back and go, no, as a matter of fact, I am, because 2 weeks ago I was doing X, Y, and Z, and now I'm doing this. So this is not as long of an episode as I usually put up here for this podcast, but I just wanted to give you a short little hitter and tell you, look, you can play with confidence even if you just started playing this instrument. Just assume that identity, and then let's do things that a drummer would do. It's really all we have to do. Celebrate those daily wins, keep a practice journal, show up, and have those goals that you're marching towards. If I can ever help you, just let me know. Help@stevensdrumshed.com. I'd love to hear from you.